Hello and welcome to Matrix IT Cybersecurity Fundamentals course. This module is on the data breach. My name is Frank Fazio and I will be your instructor. Well, data breach. It's pretty self-explanatory. Your system's been breached and data's been taken. And that data could end up on the dark web being sold to the highest bidder, or the data can be used against you. Sometimes that data contains usernames, passwords, email addresses, phone numbers, things like that. And for instance, if you're reusing your password and you're in that breach, you reuse the password. That password now is gonna be tried on all these other websites to see if it works. And this is another reason why we don't reuse our passwords. But there's a number of different ways this can happen. Let's take a look. First, the definition of a data breach. A data breach is an incident where information is stolen or taken from a system without the knowledge or authorization of the system's owner. Okay, you're breached, data goes out the window, and who knows where it goes. All right, so what does it look like? What does a data breach look like? Well, here's one. As I was doing this, as I was making this module up, the slides, I could not believe how many companies have actually been breached. It's hard to keep a breach quiet when the data is being sold on the dark web or the clear web, to the highest bidder. It's out there. Word gets around. And that's exactly what happened with Twitter. Twitter had a flaw in their software, and before they could fix it, one of the bad guys figured it out. And what they did was they broke into the Twitter databases and pulled out 5.4 million accounts, the details, data of 5.4 million accounts. And they went and tried to sell it on the dark web. I think it was about $30,000 they were looking for. And you put a little bit of data when you're a hacker and you're selling data on the dark web. To prove that you actually have the data, you kind of put a little sample out there. It's a little sample for you to take a look at and to prove that you have all the data. Well, at that point, Twitter figured it out because they looked at the data and they said, yeah, that's our data. So they had to come clean, and they had to put out a press release basically saying, yeah, we had a flaw, and before we could get to it, somebody figured it out and pulled our data. Now, again, if you have, a password, if you're in Twitter and you're using your password somewhere else, the same password using in Twitter, well, it's quite possible that your password's out there. Okay, so that's what it looks like. There's many cases of this. It just kept going on and on. I was going through one of those rabbit holes of seeing all this stuff. So how does it happen exactly? There's a number of different ways. Misdelivery. That email that contains sensitive information is sent to the wrong person. And that's what happened. I think it was the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps, I think over 20,000 users' information or Marines' information was in an email, and it was sent to the wrong distribution list. And it was unencrypted. So at this point, you have a data breach. Because now you've sent all of this unencrypted data, which is confidential data. It's personnel data on the Marines. It's out to the wrong people. Okay, so you have to be careful when you're doing that email and you're sending information to someone else during the day at work. Okay, make sure it's going to the right person. Password issues. Again, you reuse a password. All it takes is one password, and you can walk right into a system. And this is why we talked about creating strong passwords in one of the modules. This is why password managers we did a module on, and also two-factor authentication. two-factor authentication stops somebody from using your password, because then they have to make that extra effort and figure out what the code that they need along with that password. So password issues is a big deal when it comes to data breaches. You just can't reuse your password. And again, the password at work that you use every day needs to be unique. All right. Phone or computer not updated. Again, that's, we've talked about that mobile devices, that module. You have to keep your apps updated. You have to keep your antivirus software updated, and you have to keep your software, your operating system updated, because as time goes on, more and more holes, security holes, are found by the bad guys, and they can exploit that, and they can move in and get into your network that way too. Okay, so keep your stuff updated. That's another way it happens. Lost or stolen hardware. That's a good one. There was a case of a health provider. An employee had their laptop in their car, and the laptop was stolen. And I believe it had details about 43,000 patients on it. And it was password protected, the laptop, but the hard drive was not encrypted. So this is called a data breach. You losing your phone, or you're losing a laptop that contains confidential information. The information is out there now. Now, whether somebody can extract it off the laptop is a different story, but that's classified as a data breach, as a data breach. Okay. Insider threats. Disgruntled employees leak information. They may, take documents, or they may take personnel files that are digital, in a digital format, and they may leak it on purpose. Because they're mad at their boss, or they're getting paid under the table, something along those lines. So that's another way data can leave your network, your workplace. And user errors, misconfiguration. A lot of the times in IT, we work with setting up, for instance, cloud-based systems, where the information sits in the cloud. And if it's not configured properly, the bad guy can possibly get in and pull data out of it. So these are all examples of how data breaches happen, right? Some of it is your software issues, some are hardware issues, some are user errors. So we have to be very, very careful when we're working on our computers during the day, that we don't, for instance, we don't have a misdelivery of confidential information. Now, IBM looked at some stats on data breaches, and they came up with a couple things. If you like stats, here you go. So 19% of data breaches are from stolen or compromised credentials, which is your password, your username and your password, right? We're not going to use it anywhere else, and we're not going to give it to someone. Okay, we shouldn't be giving our passwords to anybody. We have to be very careful with them. 16% of data breaches are from phishing. Right, you get that email. We talked about it in the phishing module, in the spear phishing module. Be careful when you get an email that's unsolicited, at work, asking you to click on a link or download an attachment. There are ways, if you double click on an attachment, like I said, a keylogger, right? And if that keylogger is sitting on your network or on your computer, it can see all of the, the keystrokes you're typing, and we type in our passwords, right? And of course, 15% is cloud misconfiguration. That's not something you have to worry about. I just was throwing it out there so you can take a look at it. That's our issue. That's the IT issue. And the average is a pretty big number, 4.3 mil average data breach cost. So it is expensive. Once data leaves your network, you can't get it back. All right, it's out there. So There is another example, a real life example. We looked at the Twitter one. This is Ashley Madison. I don't know how well you would know Ashley Madison, that website, but Ashley Madison was a website where you could go if you were married and you could sign up to it with a username and password and meet other married people that wanted to have an affair. So if you're a guy and you are looking to have an affair with somebody in your area, you could go to Ashley Madison, fill out the information, and it could pair you up with a woman that was in the same area. All right. So hackers got a hold of the data. They told Ashley Madison that they didn't like what they were doing on how they were letting people cheat and a number of other things, and they threatened to release the data unless Ashley Madison shut down their servers, and they didn't. Ashley Madison kept all their servers up and running, and the hackers said, "Fine, we're going to release the data," and they released it. It got to the point where there was a website out there, and I don't think it works anymore. You could go to the website and you can actually type in like an email address or a username, and it would show you if it was in the data. So you could basically check up on your spouse in the leaked data through a search engine that was created for Ashley Madison data, and you could actually see if they had signed up for this website. It created a lot of problems. Churches, the pastors in a church would be looking up, the members of the congregation. People had used some of their government emails. NASA.gov was found in the data. So, these guys were using official emails, which is easy now to track back to them. But the problem was the people that were in this data leak, once that came out and people started searching, there were suicides. There were a number of people that committed suicide because of this data leak. So you could see how, releasing this data and having it out there and having it searchable can really mess up a lot of relationships and a lot of people's lives. So we have to be very, very careful when we're on these silly websites, and you got to think twice about what you're doing. All right, but that was the Ashley Madison leak. You can look it up. The website, like I said, I looked for it and I started playing around with it, but I couldn't get it. At one time it worked, but I couldn't get it to work, so it must have been taken down. So I figured, here's a good opportunity to go through the top 10 data breaches according to the CSO Online. They did this whole thing in top 10 of the last so many years. So number 10 is NetEase. NetEase is a company that provides mail accounts for websites and all. So it's an email type deal. They had a data breach of 235 million accounts, which included emails and users. And MySpace, I don't know if everybody here has remembered MySpace, but that was before Facebook. 360 million accounts were exposed. Again, if you don't use MySpace, that's great, but if you're using the same password you used in MySpace, then that password is out there, so you have to be careful if you're going to reuse that. Adult Friend Finder, that was the site that allowed you to do a lot of adult things, and here we go. 412 million accounts, got exposed, and not only usernames and passwords, but the things that you might have been doing on that Adult Friend Finder site, because it was attached to a lot of other adult sites. And a lot of the stuff that you do online, whether it be chatting or that kind of stuff, is recorded. So you have to be very careful if it gets exposed, because that information is now out there. Number 7, Yahoo. 500 million accounts were exposed. Everything from usernames and passwords, things along those lines. Marriott's number 6. So Marriott had a system where you could sign up to it, and it's allow you to do things with the Marriott site and contact them and all that stuff. That leaked, and actually it was funny because I stayed at a Marriott after this, and I knew that there was this exposure because it was a rather big one, and I went to a Marriott to stay because I was teaching, and the guy behind the counter is like, "Oh, you want to sign up to our Marriott thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no." No, you guys were breached already. And he knew what I was talking about, but I'm not signing up to your website. It was quite funny. No, well, funny to me. Facebook, 533 million accounts were exposed in 2019. Somebody got into a couple of their databases. Sina Weibo, that is one of the biggest Chinese social media platforms that they use. 538 million accounts were exposed in their data breach. LinkedIn, this one just happened last year. 700 million accounts were exposed. So that included your email address, and your username and things like that. Not sure if the passwords are out there, but again, we need to be aware that, if your LinkedIn password, is being used, or even at this point, you should change your LinkedIn password. And that's what password managers do. If you run a password manager, and you can go back and look at the module if you haven't already. In a password manager, you put your password for LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and you log in, your password manager will keep that password for you, so it'll log in for you automatically. The password manager will actually go out to like the dark web or some other data set and see if your password has been exposed. It'll let you know that. Okay, and then you can change it. But if you haven't changed your password since 2021, 700 million accounts, you could change it if you want. Number two, Alibaba was the is the Chinese marketplace. 1.1 billion accounts got breached in that one. And the number one data breach was Yahoo. Yahoo, as with 2013, 3 billion user accounts were exposed. Okay, again, usernames and passwords. So they're floating around out there. Now, if you look, you're going to say, hey, wait a minute. Yahoo in 2014, here at number 7, 500 million accounts. Yep. The year before was 3 billion. All right. So somebody figured something out, and they were some cyber criminal figured something out and got in there and pulled 3 billion user accounts out there. Okay. I think that's when I started using a password manager, because I couldn't remember my passwords, and I knew my passwords were out there, or my password was out there. So I started using a password manager to keep track of everything, because I couldn't remember, and I wanted to make my passwords longer. But that's what you have to be worried about. Okay, we're so good at keeping our passwords under control and not going to the websites and not clicking on things, but we can't control the companies that have our data. Right? We do such a good job, and then something happens to Yahoo, and our email and our phone number could possibly be out there now. So you have to be aware at all times. All right. So protecting ourselves, well, there's a couple things we can do. And if you've watched other modules, I'm a stickler about this one. Just do your work a favor. Just keep that password different than all your other passwords. All right, and you don't want a data breach. Don't reuse your passwords. Get a password manager. Remember, credentials are stolen, and they're used. Multi-factor authentication when available. If somebody does get a hold of your password, they can't get in if you've got that code on your phone, right? You need both, and they may have your password, but they don't have your phone. Now, one thing you can do, and I don't think I've mentioned this in another module. I might have mentioned it in the password module. I'm not 100% sure. You can go to haveibeenpwned.com and you can actually see if you've been involved in a breach. It's a really cool site. It's a security researcher takes care of it. You go there and you put in your username or your email address, and it will search through all of their databases to see if you've or if that username or that email address has been in an exposure. Okay, and it will tell you the exposure. So if you have a Yahoo account and you put in so and so at yahoo.com, it should show you, based on the 3 billion in 2013, the 3 billion account breach, it should show you, oh, yep, you were involved in that Yahoo breach. Okay, and then you just change your password. You go over to Yahoo and change it. Don't freak out or anything like that. If you find that your password manager is telling you that your password's been exposed, or Have I Been Pwned is telling you that your password's been exposed, just log in and change the password. Not a big deal. All right. And if like there you go. If you've been notified of a breach, go to the website and change the password. Okay, if you're told or you find out that your Netflix has been exposed through one of those sites, the Have I Been Pwned or your password manager, just go into Netflix and change it. It's not a big deal. All right, so that's the data breach. Data gets out. How it gets out, there's a number of different ways. And it's sold on the dark web. So be careful of the things we do. We can't control what these other companies do, but we can control what we do. And that's what we have to be focused on. All right. That's the end of this module. Stay safe, stay frosty, and I will see you in the next module.